light and love, which feels like a flow, not really with a beginning or ending. And I used to really think about, before, like, oh, what do I need to do? And now I really just feel into like, how am I feeling? What's flowing? And how can I just let things flow through me? So current relationship feels expansive and like channeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which requires its kind of composting, letting things through the channel to clean out. And then also like letting the light in to then flow through me and flow towards everyone evenly in the spaces I'm in.
I love what you're saying about flow. I think for me right now, that kind of is sitting with both parts and self being present at the same time and kind of in conversation with self. I think before I thought that in order for me to be in self, I had to like not have any parts or get rid of my parts. And then I realized like, no, parts are part of myself. And self is not, like, they're not separate things. So this flow and this light and this kind of, this rhythm, I think is where I'm sitting with. Like, and sometimes my parts will speak a little bit louder, a little more time. And sometimes self will come up and I'm like, okay, breathe in. So the flow metaphor is really that's where I'm sitting with them. I'm vibing with them.
Yeah.
I feel like where I am right now with self and parts is it is a flow, and also it's like it just feels like friends, just a group of friends or like a council, and like just me being in relationship to all of them. So whereas before I think similar, where it's like, oh, self is here and our parts are in the back. It's more just like they get to be wherever they want to be, right? And be in relationship with each other. And neither is right or wrong. I think also self is like, yeah, I played this part up here, to help kind of guide and align. But let's actually let, other parts just rock, and maybe they do want to lead and they want to change, be seen. And a lot of times it's just me being like, girl. That's kind of like how it is every day.
Again.
It's like Jordy. It's just like different. So,
Yeah. I can definitely relate with everything everyone's saying, because it's that idea of like the no bad parts, right? Like where I think when I first started with this, my relationship to self and parts was still really distant, and it was like when you drop in the part space, right, and all of a sudden the ego drops and you get to witness those parts that you pushed far, far, far away that of course inevitably come up at the worst times in real life, and then you get to re-meet that part in this context. It's just like beautiful. And so I think that's the reality of like, I want to know now every part of my parts, like every one of them, because they all have magic and medicine, and those protector parts, like it's just like, yeah, I think of them like that, like small child in your life that is, acting out or only knows one way to be because they've never been held and seen and witnessed, and like the beauty of being able to do that in my own self, and then gift that when I can with especially younger kids. I think are like the ones that really it feels present, and so I try to take that in, and it's like, yeah, it's like finding the Riley that like was and could have been, maybe if some of those self-limiting beliefs and protector parts didn't feel so necessary at the time. So it's just it's beautiful, like homecoming. Yeah.
You brought up that part. Or the part about the parts that was really like meaningful to me when it came up in conversation. And there's one of the things was like, ask your part how old they think you are. And then the moment the part saw me as a child, or the part that was holding me in a space was there. So in this new relationship with parts, it's like we're growing together. And the parts come in, we're like, okay, now we're walking the same path at the same time. Or when one of us gets a little ahead, it's like, okay, hold up, let me catch up. Or, whoa, we're good. Go back to your space, your beautiful spot that you want to go to, and rest a little bit because we're there. So there's a difference in like, my parts and I are walking side by side more than at this part in my life. And that just feels so reassuring. Because it is, like you said, like the medicine of them, like I feel protected and guided by my parts now, in a way.
And they're not like siloed or isolated. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what also like I'm learning as I walk with my parts is like what were needs that I had then and how do they want to be tended to then and then what are they now? I just think that's yeah, as I get older, as things change in my life, as I'm starting to reorient myself and like who I am in my family and my community, I'm like and asking like what do I need? You know, it still doesn't get easy, but it's like how does that question come up? It's like, oh, my parts get to be a part of that and it's different now. It's like and they see that. They're like, "Oh, what you needed back then, well this is actually what it looks like now." Right? Yeah, so I think that's been a wonderful kind of trajectory for them.
Dylan said something really beautiful to me yesterday about, I was talking about wanting balance, which is kind of similar to this. Like, here's all the parts, you know, it's like we don't want them to go away, but I was just talking about the fullness of life. And she offered me this metaphor or word instead of harmony. And it really stayed with me because in the parts world or in my own life, the harmony needs all these different musical instruments, right? It needs all of these voices. All the parts are inherently welcome. They have a role to play, literally, and the play part of it too.
Yes.
They're protecting important needs, and one of them wants to play, and one of them is like, we could be badass at work, and we could do this.
That's right.
And it's like, yes, yes, yes. And so I've been loving this harmony piece about what current relationship to self feels like. And at some point, I'm like, I want to hear the flute. At some point, I'm like, I want to dance. But actually, it is a harmony. And then I think about being at this reunion and in CHJL spaces and how we all are then this larger harmony, right? Like, I want your voice, your everybody's magic and wholeness in the room. And then I think about like out there in movements and out there in the world, not in movements. And how ultimately doing this kind of self-work with our parts is the beginning of peace building. And when we can hear all the dissonance within and be in harmony with it, we begin the act of like building peace actively. So it has really stayed with me. It's really just kind of like crystallized something for me coming into this space.
Yeah. And what you're saying right now reminds me of like how this morning felt so different than so many other rooms, because I think because of the work we've all been invited into and are practicing with coach partners, with ourselves, it's like we can show up either in self or closest to self. And that is like a tangible feeling to the folk around us that they can then show up more in self. And so that idea of it being a tool for peacemaking, like if you can have compassion for yourself and your parts, like there's that automatic ability to see that tension that's happening in someone else and hold them and see them differently. So, yeah.
It's so interesting. It's fascinating because then it makes me think about like how my growing relationship with parts has made me see my relationship to self differently. So now like self starts to feel connection with my parts, but in a way that's a little bit different for me now. Self is like this stillness and the quiet, this like this I feel like I used to walk around and hear a lot of chatter in my brain, right? I used to hear this and there was this and that, and I think it was that disconnection to my parts. So now when I'm moving through it, and when I feel like when I'm sitting in self or moving through spaces in self, there's a quietness, there's a stillness. And then I know that I'll go back, or a part will come in and they'll just kind of lightly tap, right? And they'll be like, okay, come in and check with me. I'm like, cool, we're good. I got you. We'll find time.
Yeah.
And it's such a difference to how I used to move. And then, I mean, that used to feel like show up in my body differently, like the anxiety, the tension, not being able to rest and sleep. So I'm feeling now like when I find myself in self, it's a lot of just stillness and rest and deep breath that allows me to just flow into move here, go there.
That resonates with me. I feel like a lot of the work I've been doing with self, I mean, before it was like, where can I find self, right? And like, it's like grasping for what I felt in a peak experience, right? Or my highest high. And I'm like, and now it's like, I feel self when I'm able to feel my essence or a part of me in the midst of pressure,
Mm.
in the midst of tension, in the midst of like chaos. Essentially, it's like, and it's not like, oh, so it's like, here I am, I'm gonna let everything go by the wayside. It's like, I'm here and I'm able to hold with what is right now and be with what is. And I feel like that's kind of been the amorphous of like, there's gonna be constant change, right? In any which way. There's going to be a lot of things, external forces, and it's like, how do we just be with all and then really find and tap into who we are in the moment?
Yeah. And what's coming up for me right now with like how I feel in self, like that's like where to think of myself as being more self-led now, right? And before it's so parts-led. Like I actually, like I want to cringe that I like want to love that version of myself that was, because it makes sense, right? And I like came from these identities of being like mixed race, like come from low income working class background, like trans, and held that down for so long, and queer, held that down for a really long time. And so it was like all these ways of like, some people call it like masking in the world, or what, but it's like it was leading by my protector parts. Like, how are people gonna see me, connect me with me, love me, right, and want the best for me? I thought I had to do it from that space. And so then the reality that like I can be this like calm self and not think about like I was actually creating more disconnection than connection, because I was like so worried about how folks would receive me, and just not, I had no idea what authenticity truly was. And so like to move from self and notice that now there's all these opportunities for connection that I always had dreamed of, being who I truly am and being like comfortable with those negative, I would have called negative parts before, but now they're just like teacher parts, right? And so it's like I can see that I have less chatter and I have less like making meaning up here, instead of feeling like meaning in my body and connection in my body, and noticing, I think it's just really noticing that there was just so much going on up here that I wasn't present, and I thought I was. And the grief parts come up sometimes to think of how long I was in that state, but then there's just the beauty in that process, right? And so I'm find that self is just like one of the biggest gifts of presence and connection. That's when I know I'm in it.
Right, that really makes me think about, I resonate with a lot with what you're saying around not the specific identities and experience, right? But this thing about like, will I be loved? Ultimately, I think, will I belong? Will I be included? Will I be allowed to be here for all the things, like being a transnational migrant, survivor, and queer, and all of the things, and being divorced, and like leaving your culture, leaving your community in so many ways, and then being like, where do I find myself? And then there were all of these like judgment and shame parts, right? And really thinking about, if I do this, will I no longer be deserving of community or belonging, right? And then often just being like, I don't know what I'm doing, like in this country. So a lot of like a very common voice used to be, am I doing this right? And so now I realize I haven't thought about it so consciously in a while, but now I don't think that much about, am I doing it right? What should I be doing? And do people love me? I actually do feel so much belonging and so much love in so many communities, including this one. I feel abundantly blessed and securely belonged. And so now I am often like entering like a space like this, thinking about, what can I offer? It's already so beautiful. And that to me is now like self and spirit, right? I'm like, I have received, I am complete, I am whole, I'm overflowing with all the good juices of life. And so I just really think about, where do I want to direct my love? Where do I want to give? How do I offer? I'm like, it's already beautiful. And even coming into this, I was like, I'm not sure what to offer and where. And then I was like, oh, beauty, pleasure, love. Where do I want to offer? Yeah, that's the vibe now.
Yeah, I agree. It's like the question for me is similar. It's like, how alive do I feel right now? It's like that's what self, that's all that self wants to know, is like, how live do you feel? I think especially so much we've all gone through in the last few years of the pandemic, but all that stuff is just like, yeah, like, do you feel like you're living? Is this life affirming for you? Is this life affirming for your ancestors? Is this life affirming for the folks around you? Right. And I think it's like self is like, it's powerful when you actually are living life affirming, trajectory or path, and like what that does. I think also it's been asking me like, what else is here? Who else is here? Who wants to be called in here that's not seen at the moment, right? That we want to honor with like you making choices on your own life and you living like how you want to live. Yeah.
I love that you brought beauty and love in, because I find myself, I've been smiling a lot this whole time. And smiling, and that's one of the things like I can think back and I would think I'd be driving somewhere, I'm sitting, I'm like, oh, I haven't smiled in a while. And I think I literally, you're right. And I kind of be like literally kind of force myself, because science says if you do, it'll I gotta change my chemicals in my body. And now I find myself when I'm in self, I'm like, oh, I've been smiling this whole time, right? Like naturally, like, so it feels like joy, and it does feel like love, and it does feel like beauty, and it feels like energy, and it feels like an electricity that is just so focused and intentional that I can kind of move with, and it flows through me. And I find myself allowing myself more to like find joy in the little things. If something is beautiful to me, that's beautiful. If I want, hey, a compliment here, a stranger, or talk to someone like, and I used to have that same chatter of like, oh, I shouldn't, what are they going? Oh, maybe I shouldn't. And now I'm just like, no, I feel joy, I want to share it. I feel love, I want to share it. I feel empathy, and I want to share it. And that's something that is new too. And that's something that I really like, have been so grateful to be feeling that of self. Like I can unapologetically feel love for myself and for others. And that was something after the end of my cohort where I thought, I was like, wow, I can actually say I love myself and not second guess it. I love myself when, I love myself if, I just say, I love myself.
Yeah.
And then go on. And then cool, right? And
It's powerful. For example, before I used to think about like self-management, right? I'm like, oh, to be present, I'll be really still and like really attentive and listen. And now I'm like, I need to move. So I found a way to listen to my part, that my part is like, hey, can we dance now? So I found a way to disrupt in ways that are necessary for my life force, for my full aliveness and authentic presence, and for it to be full of all the magic and joy and power. I actually need to sometimes break with the norm. And then I want to try to do it as gently and subtly as possible to not disrupt the whole. But I have this relationship where I respect the parts, where I'm like, oh, you have something to say. And if I listen to you now, it'll be before you knock me on the head. And so let's just move a little now. Like, a little water now will go a long way before I get in the coughing fit, because I was really dehydrated. So just things like that. Just things like that. Like being able to listen early and just being like, all the voices are talking. Before it felt like you said, like chatter. Now it feels like data. And I'm like, I'm listening to all of you. I respect and value all of you. We have a better relationship, so I can listen more quickly. That's a relationship I value in terms of there's mutual respect. Like you said, I'm like, oh, you're trying to help me. This is working in a harmony. Self is like making the final decisions, but my responsibility is to like listen well and listen early and respond. So I appreciate that. I feel like it enhances my life and allows more of me to be well while I'm trying to make my offering in the world.
I think the parts that I've been in like relationship with for the past few years is like, as you call it, like my manager self or my perfectionist self, where it's like, it's like, oh, these are the are these expectations really real, right? It's like my part that's just setting these expectations, and it's usually like keep things going, right? Because and it comes from a history of being super responsible. And like if I'm not gonna do it, things are not gonna happen, and not just for me, but for my whole family and my whole, it's just like it comes from this whole
future.
And the future,
No pressure. You can be not perfect, right?
You can't be perfect because you gotta let down. And it's like for me, the relationship has been like, let's take a beat, let's take a pause, and like check in, and it's like, you did well. Like, you've done well for so long. It's okay. You know, we don't need to arrange the closet today. It's not gonna, you know, we don't need to get this done today, right?
Yeah.
Or like surrender. How, like, can you surrender? Can you delegate? Can you drop off? And then I think the one that comes right behind that is fear. And I mean, we all know fear, and I think my relationship with fear has been just like answering the question with as much love as possible. Is like, what do you feel like is going to be on the other side? And like, and just like, what is there? And just kind of like, you know, give enough space for fear to just, you know, be with that and be with it as fear tries to answer that or answers it, and then hold it, because it's things that they feel like they can never ever say, you know? Yeah.
I love the holding. I think the part that we're good now is I guess the citation, the encyclopedia part, I'd say, where it's like, I have to know it. Okay, don't say that, because are you going to be able to back it up? Okay, but how can you cite all the facts of it? Can you do this? Don't say that. And that part, and I have gotten to a place where it's been really kind of moving from here to my heart. I don't have to know it as long as I understand it and feel it. And if I can share it from here, it's just such a much more beautiful experience for me. And I feel much more grounded in self. But that part was always telling me, like, don't say it if you don't know exactly. If you can't quote exactly who said that, or if you can't back it up, or if you haven't read that book, if you haven't like done that thing, then don't speak about it.
Yeah, I feel like all of these parts sound somewhat familiar. But for me, I think the last, I guess almost, it's maybe like 18 months or 2 years of really working with grief and anger. And those definitely feel like deep ancestral burdens that, like, you know, when we did the ancestral unburdening, like where it's like 70% my family's and 30% mine, but I hold it 100%, you know, like that. And just so fearful of tapping into those parts and had pushed them so far. And then, of course, those things would come up at inopportune moments, you know? So it's like getting to know them now. It feels like what you were saying of like, I can sense it coming up, provided that space and listen in and really, because it's such a grief, right? Is such a teacher. Anger is such a teacher. And like, there's something that often feels like not just right for me, and if I push it down, it just goes straight to my shoulders and it goes straight to like my whole body and my stomach. And then I'm literally physically ill. And so to get to know these parts and have a different relationship with them is like my whole body feels differently. Like my shoulders are lower down. Like I had a friend that said I used to be like this, like a cat, you know, and I'm like, oh, I think I got like a longer neck now. I'm just kidding. But it's like, you know, it's that thing of like, they are, you know, they've been passed down, and like, and I can feel every time that I have a different relationship to them, that it's like, it is healing the backwards and forward and every which way, you know? And yeah, so those are I think they're going to be in my circle for a while, but those are my favorite right now. Yeah.
I mean, also just this, like, to be able to talk about my parts, I'd be like, no, I can't. I was like, I'm not going to show you my bank account, right? But to be able to sit here and be like, yeah, those are my parts, without shame, without guilt, and like, yeah, and then laughing with you all. It's beautiful, because this is also a whole journey and a difference in relationship with my parts. I would never be able to talk about them like this.
Yeah, and that's like gets to the cultural perfection of like, we're not supposed to have these negative parts of us and feelings. And then, getting to know these ones that I used to label as negative, like I've become a more full person, and I have such a range of emotions and ability to tap in and know that I'm not going to be overwhelmed by them. And so it just feels like, getting to be a more full self. Yeah.
I also feel like it's like a reclaiming, decolonizing us as coaches, because I feel like even when I was coming up and saw coaches around me, it's like, we got to keep our shit together, you know, because we can't show any of these things, right? Because we're supposed to be the the teacher or the mentor like have it together.
Still ones.
Yeah, the still ones, right? And I feel like when we show a range within our parts, it's like, no, we can still be like these folks who hold it down for people, the coaches and stuff like that. But what does it feel like to even be more in ourselves, right? That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, and to like mirror that for someone else too. It's pretty
Yeah.
That really makes me think about, you know, that book, Women Who Run with the Wolves? And
Yes.
that whole concept of wildness, like the inherently the wild archetype, that wildness is not about being out of control. So much of this is about perfectionism and tamping down on performance to be like, we're uniform conforming. But then we're like, I feel all these things. And then we're deeply like, you need to feel and express all these things to like growl and howl, right? Crawl and cry and everything to remain human, to be able to feel everything, let that move through us. And that letting our inherent wildness out is actually what keeps us in balance.
That's right.
Right. And I found it really beautiful and liberating, decolonizing the natural world, because in nature, like animals hunt and eat what they need. They actually don't hoard the meat and refrigerators, right? It's so much more inherently balanced. And like emotions are felt, hunger is felt and it's met. And like pain is felt and it's expressed. And the howling happens right away. It's us to the point around grief and collective howling that we need right now and don't get. We need to find ways of doing that and creating safe spaces to be wild, because that's what's going to keep us human and moving through this.
That's right.
If we try to like tamp this down, it's just going to pile up. So as I've been dancing and moving more and letting that wild part out, I'm just like, I often come to a place where there's no words. I'm like, I just need to crawl. I just need to move. I just need to be with what is. And so the self keeps finding its way. But I think the permission for wildness needs to continuously be given to myself, like from myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.